Lesson 33 is on subtracting integers. And the only thing you need to remember for subtracting integers is to add the opposite, and then we follow the rules for adding integers. Number 1 says, at midnight the temperature was 5 degrees Fahrenheit. By 10 a.m. the next morning it had increased by 17 degrees. What was the temperature at 10 a.m.? So this is a adding integers problem. So we have -5, and then it increased, meaning we add on 17. If you remember the row, row, row your boat song, it's same sign, add and keep, but these don't have the same sign. One's negative and one's positive. So different signs you subtract. So I'm going to take 17 minus 5, which is 12, and then keep the sign of the higher number. The higher number is 17, that's positive, so my answer will be positive. So the answer is B. Write the approximate distance from Earth to Venus, 25 million miles, in scientific notation. Well, the decimal point needs to go between the 2 and the 5 so that there's one digit to the left of the decimal. And that would mean that we moved the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 places. So it's 2.5 times 10 to the 7th because we moved it 7 places. And then our units are miles. Enrique bought 6 bags of grass seed to reseed his lawn. Each bag cost $13.89. How much did Enrique spend on grass seed? So we're multiplying decimals, and when you do that, you ignore that they have a decimal, and then you put them back in the end. So we ignore the decimal point, and we just write 1389 times 6. 9 times 6 is 54. 6 times 8 is 48, plus 5 is 53. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 5 is 23. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. And then we look and we say, well, there were 2 decimal places that we ignored, so we have to have 2 decimal places in our answer. So our answer is $83.34. In the city of Austin, Texas, the state sales tax is 6.25%. The city sales tax is 1%, and the transportation board sales tax is 1%. What percent do people of Austin pay in sales taxes? So we have to add up all those percents. So we have 6.25 plus 1 plus 1. Wow, 6 plus 1 plus 1 is 8.25%. Ken, who lives in Austin, purchased a bicycle for $189. How much sales tax did he pay? So to figure out how much sales tax, we're going to do 8.25% of 189. So to figure that out, I like to break things down for percents into ones and 10%. So 8.25% is going to be 8 times 1% of 189, and then 0.25, or 1/4% of 189. 1%, if I'm going to take 1% of a number, I move the decimal place 2 places to the left. So if it's $189, the decimal place is here. I move it 2 places to the left, so 1% is $1.89. So to find what 8% is, I just multiply 189 times 8. So 9 times 8 is 72. 8 times 8 is 64, plus 7 is 71. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So $9.12. I'm just double checking here. Oh, duh. This should be a 7. Let's try that over. So 8 times 9 is 72. Carry the 7. 8 times 8 is 64, plus 7 is 71. Carry the 7. 8 times 1 is 8, times 7 is 15, or plus 7 is 15. And then we have 2 decimal places. So the decimal place goes here. So $15.12 is 8%. And then we have 0.25%. So we need to figure out what 1/4 of a percent is. So we divide $1.89, which is 1%, by 4 to get 0.25%. So 4 goes into 18 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. 18 minus 16 is 2. Carry the 9 down. 4 goes into 29 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. 29 minus 28 is 1. Add a 0. Bring the 4 goes into 10 twice. And I can stop there since I'm talking about dollars and cents. I can see that I'm going to cut it off here. And the 2 is going to keep the 7 as a 7. So I don't have to finish the problem. So I have 8% is $15.12. 0.25% is 47 cents. So if we add those together, we get the total 8.25% is, add these together, 9,551, $15.59. What kind of figure is created when these points are connected by line segments in the given order? So -2, 2, go to the left 2 and up 2, 1, 5, to the right 1 and up 5, 5, 5, to the right 5 and up 5, 8, 2, to the right 2, or excuse me, to the right 8 and up 2, and then back to the original. So it says connect them in the order given, which is this order, and then back to the original. And it's asking what's the shape. Well, I can see, since these are straight lines on the grid, these two sides are parallel. The little arrow is how we indicate parallel lines. The two on the side, the diagonal ones, are not parallel. So this shape has one set of parallel lines, and a quadrilateral, meaning a four-sided shape, which this is, with one set of parallel lines is called a trapezoid. In a whale ecology study, gray whales were tagged in order to study their feeding habits. One day, a biologist recorded that a gray whale feeding at a depth of 10 meters, -10 meters, suddenly descended, meaning went down, 32 meters. What is the new depth of the gray whale? So he was at -10 meters, and then descended, meaning we go down, so we subtract 30 more meters. So we're going to use our rule for subtracting integers, and instead of subtracting, we will add the opposite. So we'll have negative 10, and we're going to add on the opposite of positive 30, which is negative 30. So now these have the same sign and they're being added, so all we do is we add the numbers. 10 and 30 is 40, and we take the sign that they both have, which is negative. So the gray whale is now at a depth of negative 40 meters. Simplify. So we're going to use our rules. If we're going to subtract an integer, we're going to instead add its opposite. So we're going to add on the opposite of negative 1 is 1. So 8 plus 1 is 9. And then we'll add on the opposite of negative 2. So negative 1 plus positive 2 is the opposite. These two have opposite signs. So I subtract the numbers. 2 minus 1 is 1. And the sign of the bigger number, which is 2, is positive. So my answer is positive. Negative 6 minus 5. So it's negative 6 minus positive 5. So we'll have negative 6 plus negative 5. They're the same sign. They're both negative. So we add the numbers. 6 and 5 is 11. And then we keep the sign that they had, negative 1. Or excuse me, negative. In B, you're adding two of the same sign, so we take the numbers and add them. 8 plus 12 is 20, and the sign on both of them is negative, so your answer will be negative. Collect like terms. Now remember, like terms need to have the same variable as well as the same exponent on the variable. So 3a and 2a squared can't go together because the exponents don't match. So we have to look for something that has another a. So we have 3a and a. So we have 3a and 1a makes 4a. And then we have 2a squared minus a squared. And there's an imaginary 1 in front of each of those that don't have a number. So 2a squared minus 1a squared means that we're left with 1a squared, which again we just write as a squared. Write 7/9 as a decimal and a percent. Well, the trick with the 9 when you have fractions is the numerator is just the repeating decimal. So if I have 1/9, the repeating decimal is 0.1111111 repeating. If I have 2/9, it's 0.22222 repeating. 7/9 then would be 0.7 repeating. And then as a percent, if I wrote that out just a couple more, it would be 0.777 repeating. As a percent, you take a decimal and you move the decimal place 2 places to the right. So then it would be 77.7 repeating percent. And we could do this the long way to make sure that we knew, in case you didn't know that that's what the rule was for 9s, we could say 7 divided by 9. 9 can't go into 7, so we put the decimal point. 9 goes into 7 times. 7 times 9 is 63. 70 minus 63 is 7. Put a 0, and then we're back where we started. So that would be 7, 63, 7. So it would just keep repeating itself. A spool contains 9 yards of ribbon. How many quarter-yard pieces can be cut from the spool of ribbon? So, if I'm going to cut a quarter of a yard, that means that there are 4 of those pieces per yard. So I have 9 yards, and then I have 4 pieces per 1 yard. Yards are diagonal. That they cancel out. And this tells me that 9 and 4 are both on top, so I multiply them. 9 times 4 is 36 pieces. What is the length of side BC? So the question mark is here. That is the hypotenuse of the triangle because it's the side not touching the right angle. So that means that in the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're trying to figure out c squared because that's the hypotenuse. So we'll call 16a. So we'll have 16 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. 16 squared is 256. 12 squared is 144. Add those together and we have 400. So if I want to know what just c is, then we have to ask ourselves what number times itself gives me 400. And that number is 20, because 2 times 2 would be 4, and then I'd have 2 zeros at the end. So 20 inches, since the other 2 units were inches. All right, in number 13, we have square roots and squares, and something perhaps we haven't talked about is that if you have something in parentheses like we do here with an exponent on the outside, the exponent goes on to each of those things. Or we could think about it this way as well. This would be the square root of 1/3 times 1/3 plus 1/4 times 1/4. 1/3 times 1/3. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. And then 1/4 times 1/4. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 4 is 16. We're not adding in there, we're multiplying. My fault. So then we go through and we would say 1/9 times 1/16 is, 1 times 1 is 1, and 9 times 16 54. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 5 is 14. So it's 144. And then to take the square root, what number times itself would give us 1 over 144? Well, to get the numerator, it would have to be 1 times 1. And to get to the denominator of 144, that would have to come from 12 times 12. So our answer is 1/12. Solve by inspection. So if I have a number and I subtract 3 from it, I get 27. So that number has to be 30, because 30 minus 3 would give me 27. So then 5x has to equal 30. So 5 times what number gives me 30? That number is 6. So then we check. 5 times 6 minus 3. 5 times 6 is 30. Minus 3 is 27. Estimate and then calculate. Well, to estimate, I would probably look at this and say 29 is close to 30. And then I would call 0.3. I would use the fraction for that. The 3 is in the tenths place, so it would be 3/10. So 30 times 3 tenths. And then I can say 30 divided by 3, or excuse me, 30 divided by 10 is 3, times 3 is 9. So this answer should be about 9. That's our estimate. And then it asks us to actually calculate. So if I'm going to multiply something with a decimal, I'm going to ignore that it's a decimal first of all. So I'll do 29 times 3. 9 times 3 is 27. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. And I ignored one decimal point. So 8.7 is our exact answer. Number 16, we're practicing some more with adding integers, and as well as decimals. So we have negative 17 plus negative 5, so they have the same sign. So we add the numbers and keep the sign. 17 plus 5 is 22, and the sign is negative. In B, they have the opposite sign, so we subtract the numbers and then keep the sign of the bigger number. So 16 minus 4 is 12. 16 is the bigger number and it's positive. In C, they also have the same different signs. So we subtract 27 minus 12 is 15. And the sign of the bigger number is 27 is positive. In D, we would look at converting either 0.75 into a fraction form or negative 1/4 into a decimal form. And I'll just do negative 1/4 as a decimal. So we have negative 0.25 plus 0.75. So they're opposite signs, so we would subtract. So 0.75 minus 0.25. 5 minus 5 is 0. 7 minus 2 is 5. So that's 0.5. And then we keep the sign of the bigger number, which was 0.75, and that's positive. So our answer is positive. Write 20% as a decimal and a reduced fraction. So 20% as a decimal, when I have a percent, I take the decimal point, which if I don't see it is at the far right, and I move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So I end up with 0.20 or 0.2, because I don't need the 0 at the end. And then as a reduced fraction, well, the 2 is in the tenths place, so it must be 2/10. And then dividing top and bottom by 2, I get 1/5. Which form would be most convenient to use to calculate a tip of 20% on a meal that costs $45? 1/5 I think would be easiest, because that would just mean dividing by 5. So 1/5 of 45 means 1/5 times 45, and that would be just 1 times 45 divided by 5. So simplify. There's no rule about adding and subtracting things with exponents, so we just figure out what each one is. So 9 squared is 81. 7 squared is 49. And anything to the 0 power is 1. 81 minus 49. 11 minus 2, minus 2, So I have 32 plus 1 is 33. .09 plus 0.055 plus 3.2. Put that over here. We'll have 1.09, 0.055, 3.2. We're adding up all three of those. So I can put placeholder zeros. 5, 14, 3, and 4. 4.345. 3.14 minus 0.2 times 1.5. So if I'm going to multiply 0.2 and 1.5, I would ignore that there's decimals. So I'd have 15 times 2, which would be 30. And then I have 2 decimals that I ignored, so I have to have 2 decimal places. So that's 0.0 or 0.3. So then I have 3.14 minus 0.3, which would, yeah. So 4, and then 31 would be 28, so 2.84. .5 divided by 0.025, 0.5 divided by So if we're dividing by a decimal, we need to move the decimal point over until it's not a decimal anymore. So 1, 2, 3 places here. Whatever we do outside here, we have to do here. 1, 2, 3. Put zeros. So our new problem becomes 25 on the outside and 500 on the inside. 25 goes into 50 twice. 2 times 25 is 50. 50 minus 50 is 0. Bring the 0 down. 25 goes into 0 times. So our answer is 20. In a shipping carton, there are 8 boxes. In each box, there are 8 boxes. 1 shipping carton. In each box, there are 8 containers. So times 8 containers per 1 box. So boxes cancel. We're in containers now. Each container, there are 8 ounces. So 8 ounces per 1 container. How many ounces of juice are in 8 shipping cartons? So times 8 shipping cartons over 1. Shipping cartons cancels out, and the only units that we have left is ounces. So we have 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. And it says use exponents to find the answer. So 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 is 8 to the 4th. Whoops, not 84. 8 to the 4th. And 8 to the 4th is something I would be okay with you using a calculator to find. It is 4,096. order these numbers from least to greatest. So 1/8 is something that I know offhand is 0.125. If you didn't, you could do 1 divided by 8. 8 can't go into 1, but it can go into 10 once. 1 times 8 is 8. 2, add a 0. 8 goes into 20 twice. 2 times 8 is 16. 20 minus that is 4. Add another 0. And 8 goes into 45 even times. So 0.125. And 1/10 is negative 0.1. So we start with the most negative number, which is negative 1.8. The next negative number is negative 1/10. So then 0.125 is bigger than 0.12 because there would be a 0 here, and 5 is bigger than 0. So 0.12 would be next. And then 1/8, which is 0.125, and then 0.22. A triangle has vertices -2, 1. So -2 goes to the left 2 and up 1. 2, 4. So positive 2 goes to the right 2 and up 4. And 6, 1 goes to the right 6 and up 1. Sketch this triangle and refer to your sketch to answer questions A through C. Classified by sides, what type of triangle is it? Well, if we look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides, 8 length here. And then we need to know, all right, what would be the side length here? So we have, this is exactly in the middle, so these two sides are the same. So this is going to be an isosceles triangle. To find the area of the triangle, we can do 1/2 the area of the base times the height. And the base is 8. And then the height can be here, which is 1, 2, 3. So 1/2 of 8 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. And since we don't know what the units are, we just call them units. And since it's area, it's squared. Then it's a little bit tricky to find the perimeter. But what we can do is we can say, if I have this as my shape, right here, this side is 3, if this total side is 8 here, that means that half of it is 4. And that's a triangle that you could know, or you could figure out. It's a special little Pythagorean triple. 3, 4, 5 would be those sides. And you could figure that out by doing 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. So we would end up with 5. So then we'll have 5 plus 5 plus 8 as our perimeter. So we have 18 units. If the triangle in problem 24 is transformed so that the vertices of the image are at -2, 1, 1, -3, and -2, -7, What type of transformation was performed? So it looks like we've taken this image and rotated it around that direction. So I'm going to call it a rotation. Tanya made a scale drawing of a bookcase she is going to build. The height of the bookcase is going to be 60 inches. Her drawing shows the height as 4 inches. What is the ratio of the scale drawing height to the actual height? So the scale drawing height is 4. The actual height is 60. So 4 out of 60. You could divide both of those by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 60 divided by 4 is 15. So the ratio is 1/15. Chef Laurel has 79.5 ounce block of cheese. She asks her assistant to slice the cheese into 0.75 ounce slices. What is the maximum number of slices they can get from the block of cheese? So we're dividing 79.5 divided by 0.75. 1, 2 places, 1, 2 places. So our new problem is 75 on the outside, 7,950 on the inside. 75 goes into 79 once. It goes into 45 0 times. And it goes into 450. Well, 75 and 75 is 150. And then 150 and 150 is 300, so that's 4 75s. And another 150 is 450, so that's 6 75. 6 times 75 is 450. So it looks like we can get 450, 106 slices. Keisha is doing a science experiment. She is measuring the growth differences that result from using different amounts of water and sunlight on bean seedlings. In one of the pots, a seedling is 6.7 inches tall. In another, the seedling is 5.8 centimeters tall. How much taller is the first seedling than the second? So we have 6.7 minus 5.8. Can't do 7 minus 8. 17 minus 8 is 9. 5 minus 5 is 0. So it looks like it is 0.9 centimeters taller. Use the distributive property to find 1/2 of 6 3/4 in the following expression. So we're going to distribute, which means multiply through. So the 1/2 gets multiplied by 6, and then added to 1/2 multiplied by 3/4. 1/2 of 6 is 3, and 1/2 times 3/4, 1 times 1, 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 4 is 8, and 3 plus 3/8 is 3 3/8. Brian had 8.5 inch by 11 inch piece of paper he cut into quarters as shown. What is the length and width of each quarter? So if I cut 11 in half, 5.5, so 5.5 inches is how long that would be, because 5.5 and 5.5 would give me 11. And if I cut 8.5 in half, that would give me 4.25, because 4.25 plus 4.25 would give me 8.5. Then it says, what is the area of each quarter? So to find area of the quarter, we multiply 4.25, ignoring the decimal, and 5.5, ignoring the decimal. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 2 is 10, times 2, or plus 2 is 12. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. And then we'll have the same number since we're multiplying by 5 again, just shifted over. So we have 5, 2, 1, 2. Add those together. And then we ignored 1, 2, 3 decimals. So we have 3 decimal places. So the area is 23.375 inches squared. Which would also be 25 3.3 inches squared.